Latest polling seems to show Donald Trump making advances against his Democrat rival, Kamala Harris, so there could never be a more important time to ask ourselves, who is Donald Trump really? Where is the man behind the self-created public provocateur, bully boy, and political menace? Well, there's a new film called The Apprentice about Trump's early years in New York. And I've seen it, and I have to say, I think it is brilliant and really helps the viewer to understand Trump the man. Now, Trump the man disagrees, and he's posted today that it is cheap, defamatory, and a politically disgusting hatchet job designed to hurt the greatest political movement in the history of America. Trump adds that the writer of this pile of garbage is a lowlife and talentless hack. So I guess that's a no from Donald. It's a good voice. Who better to talk about this film than its director, the Tehran-born Iranian Ali Abbasi, who now lives in Denmark? I wanted to find out if this was a film that set out fundamentally to help us understand Donald Trump.
That's right. And, that has been our mission statement from the beginning, that, these are characters, both Mr. Trump, but Roy Cohn, Ivana, these are characters that are depicted in many different ways, many different places, but they've always been caricatured or, vilified or, or heroed or whatnot. And we were like, there is a vacuum to look at these people, as human beings and investigate their complexity.
And this is a moment where the Donald Trump we recognize today is being formed, as it were. Just for people listening, explain what period of Donald Trump's life your film covers.
Yeah, so this is really the story of how a young Donald back in 70s and 80s, when he was trying to make a name for himself in the sort of the real estate scene of New York, meets this lawyer / political fixer, Roy Cohn, and through his mentorship, through his sort of political mentorship, becomes the person as we know him today.
So it's the journey up through this.
That's right.
And there are two other areas where he seems to be particularly human, as it were. One is his very difficult relationship with his father, who is a bully and a thug. And the other one is his relationship with his older brother, who's an alcoholic and eventually dies during the course of the film. And you see almost a kind of tender side of Donald Trump in that.
Yeah, no, so people close to him that, either Gabe or our writer and I talked to, they tell us that the one time they can really see, the sadness and sorrow with Mr. Trump, who's famously not showing that many other emotions than anger and resentment. That one time they really feel it is when he talks about Freddie Jr., his brother, who died of alcoholism. And we try to depict that in the movie because I think he really looked up to him. And when he died, that was maybe even more of a sort of an impulse for him to go, I don't want to end up being a loser. I don't want to be killed. I have to be a killer and sort of intensify.
You're either a killer or you're a victim.
Yeah, that was what Fred Trump, his dad, their dad, was telling them, that there are two types of people, basically. And if you're not a killer, you're going to get killed. That's a sort of the social Darwinism that they grew up in.
Very, very interesting. And talking of very powerful influences, let's talk about Roy Cohn, because for people who don't know him, he was a notorious and frankly close to evil figure in American politics, very, very hard on the right of American politics throughout his life, part of the Rosenberg trial, pushing for the electric chair for the Harold Neville Rosenberg, the Soviet spies, and very close to a series of right-wing American politicians.
And also a Democrat.
And also a Democrat, of course, yes. But he would bug and he would take film and surreptitious recordings of people to use as blackmail against them. He would do anything. He would bribe, he would blackmail, he would bully.
Yeah, and I think Roy was the person who taught Mr. Trump the art of fabricating reality as you see fit for your own purpose. And he was very good at it. I think Roy Cohn was a PR genius, really. He was one of the few people who understood when you want to talk to people, you have to talk to on their level, to their language, and not this sort of elevated media talk that was at the time.
And he had very straightforward rules: never admit defeat, never accept, never admit anything, really.
Yeah, I mean, this morning we woke up to a tweet from Mr. Trump himself reacting to the movie. in that tweet, you can see all the 3 rules playing, you know?
Let's try that, because I have the tweet here, and I have to say it's quite an effusion from Mr. Trump. He says, forgive me, a fake and classless movie written about me called The Apprentice. In caps. Do they even have the right to use that name without approval? Will hopefully bomb. It's a cheap, defamatory and politically disgusting hatchet job put out right before the 2024 presidential election to try and hurt the greatest political movement in the history of our country, Make America Great Again. And then he goes on to talk about his wife. You really got under his skin.
Yeah, I mean, he got under his own skin, I think, because... frankly, I think he should be thankful to us and the team. We spent 6 years of our lives trying to understand him as his relationship on a human level. I think we've been very fair, very balanced. I think we've really delivered on our humanistic approach. And we've had so many venues to take cheap shot at this guy and then his family and his relatives and everything, which we didn't. So I'm really proud of what we did.
And he comes on, he talks about Ivana, his wife. I think presumably the most provocative scene from him will be the scene where he rapes his wife. Were you under particular pressure from the Trump lawyers to take that scene out?
So Andrew, I think this is an interesting thing. There are scenes depicting him getting away with getting $200 million tax cuts that are almost on the level of being illegal. There are scenes with him getting away with having a Department of Justice case against them, which, you know, like basically like completely racist. There are scenes like, and there are other accounts of him like doing other dubious stuff. And I think it's interesting that that doesn't get under anyone's skin and that goes sort of unnoticed. I think that's very interesting, you know. Yes, I do understand on a personal level, you know, it wouldn't be pleasant for anyone to you know, sort of get into this sphere of sexual assault and whatnot. But here we have to do it with a guy, you know, what this comes from is Ivana Trump's own deposition under oath in court, you know, under their legal proceedings, divorce legal proceedings. And, you know, she... again, corroborated that she wrote that also in her memoir in great detail.
So it's on the record.
At the end of that memoir, there's a disclaimer saying, I know I said rape, you know, he raped me, blah, blah. I didn't mean it in a literal criminal sense. Now, if you have that piece of information and put that against, you know, Mr. Trump is convicted in civil court of sexual assault on an unrelated case. If you put that aside and put it, you know, with the grab him by the pussy, you know, expression. Sorry about repeating that.
It's what he said. It's what he said.
And about his last week, you know, coming and saying, oh, I can do backstage and do whatever I want to those girls in the beauty pageant because I own the place. Don't you see a pattern?
I see a pattern. I'm going to read you a little bit more of his very long tweet, if that's what we call it. His message on Truth Social today. He says, my former wife Ivana was a kind and wonderful person, and I had a great relationship with her until the day she died. The writer of this pile of garbage, Gabe Sherman.
That's the part, sorry to interrupt you, but that's the part of deny everything, admit nothing. The first part, you're scum, blah, 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 that was the attack. And now here comes the third part.
So that's Roy Cohn.
Yeah, here comes the third part.
That pile of garbage, Gabe Sherman, a lowlife and talentless hack who has been widely discredited, knew that but chose to ignore it. And then he calls other people involved in the unsuccessful enterprise, he says, is your film, are allowed to spy and do whatever they want in order to hurt a political movement, which is far bigger than any of us. And he calls you all scum.
There you go. It's the third rule now playing. No matter how you are, always claim victory. And, you know, it's interesting, right? Because, you know, he's claiming that movie is unsuccessful. Actually, our weekly ratings are bigger than every single, you know, combined, is bigger than all the people who went to his Trump rallies this week.
He won't like to hear you say that. Oh, what was your reaction when you woke up this morning and you saw the Truth Social message from him?
Well, I said to myself, you know, I wish I could retain him for our marketing team, you know, but I know he's busy.
You know, he's busy. And you offered, I think, to phone him.
What's that?
You offered to call him.
Yes, because, look, do I disagree with a lot of his politics? Absolutely. Do I think that calling, you know, people eating cats and dogs is loony and crazy? Yes. But as a courtesy, as someone who has actually ethical principles adhere to, if I do a movie about a guy who is a living person, I need to be available. I need to be responsible and responsive. And I anytime and anywhere I would offer to talk to him and explain whatever he wants to know.
Let me ask you about a couple of the actors. Sebastian, who plays Donald Trump. What I find really, really interesting is in the way he moves his mouth, in his mannerisms. He is quite clearly Donald Trump, but he's a kind of softer, earlier, kind of molten wax version of the Donald Trump we know today.
That's right. So historically speaking, the mannerism that we associate with Mr. Trump now was not necessarily the kind of behavior he had back when he was younger in 70s and 80s, and I think we try to reflect that historical accuracy. Also, I think is what I like about Sebastian, that he is a minimalist. He does the least that you need to conjure the character. Now he's doing a maximalist character, which means like those are big, but I think he still tries to sort of I think it's important not to end up in the Saturday Night Live territory, but you still need to conjure the character.
Let me ask you about Jeremy Strong, who plays Roy Cohn, the lawyer in all of this. I think in the first half of the film, he is completely terrifying. You are genuinely scared of this man. And yet, in terms of the arc of the story, where you realize that Trump himself has become harder and glacial, and that humane aspect to him has gone away, is when Cohn becomes ill with AIDS. He's gay all the way through his life. And Trump just brushes him away, rejects him, casts him to one side. That seems to me to be a kind of pivotal moment in the film. Cohn is the devil, and when Trump himself has learned from the devil, he casts the devil to one side.
Yeah, no, that comes from real life, and this is like Shakespearean moment where this powerful guy who evaded everything, evaded IRS, evaded his political enemies, everything is taken down finally with everything. He gets disbarred, he gets bashed, he gets isolated, and he's dying in AIDS, and his disciple is rising and is distancing himself from him, because in the 80s Mr. Trump is projecting this macho image, and it's a liability to have a gay lawyer as when you have the macho image, But even then, Andrew, and this is I think important for the movie, even then there is some sort of genuine affection between them, because Mr. Trump, for example, goes as a character witness is in Roy Cohn's disbarment trial. So the reality is complex.
It always is complex. I have to say, I thought I understood Donald Trump much better after watching your film. Ali Abbasi, thank you so much, and again, congratulations on it.